Welcome to True Echo, where powerful stories meet unforgettable moments. In today's emotional journey, we uncover a tale that will shake you, lift you, and stay with you long after the last note fades. It begins with an old man in a hoodie sitting at a dusty public piano. But within moments, the entire station goes silent, because what they didn't know was that this man was a billionaire. And the song he played? It wasn't just music. It was a memory. A promise. A resurrection. Stay with us, because this story is not just about what was played, but about who needed to hear it. Sir, that piano's for real musicians. The voice was sharp, cutting through the bustle of Grand Central Station like a discordant chord. The old man didn't flinch. He simply looked at the upright piano near track 23 like it was a cathedral altar, not a tourist prop. His hoodie was frayed at the edges, the color somewhere between gray and memory, and his shoes were the kind people wore to forget they were ever worth noticing. The violinist, lean and theatrical in a scarf far too long for his frame, scoffed. He had held this corner for over a decade. His violin case sat open beside him, lined with faded red velvet and a few tired bills. This was his turf. So when the old man approached the piano like he belonged, it wasn't just confusing, it was an affront. The old man ran his trembling fingers along the chipped, yellowing keys. One was missing. Another was cracked down the middle like a broken tooth. The piano hadn't been tuned in years, maybe decades. But his eyes weren't looking for perfection. They were searching for something lost. Sir, a security guard began, walking over lazily, one hand on his belt. Let's not mess with the piano today, okay? Film crews coming in 20 minutes. Don't need a scene. The old man finally turned. His voice, when it came, was soft but weighted. Just one song. That pause, the way he said it, made the guard hesitate. There was no threat, no defiance. Just a plea shaped like a whisper. The guard folded his arms. Fine. One song. Make it quick. The violinist rolled his eyes, muttered something under his breath, and returned to tuning. He'd seen plenty of old folks try to bang out chopsticks and collect pity applause. This was going to be no different. Except it was. The old man eased onto the bench. It creaked. The piano itself seemed to groan in protest. He hovered his fingers above the keys, not playing, listening. And then, like a fog lifting over a lake, he began. It wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. It was quiet, so quiet the passing crowd almost missed it. But a few heads turned. Then a few more. The melody started delicate, like something from a dream not meant to be remembered. His left hand stumbled at first. But the right remembered. And slowly, gently, it began to tell a story. Unknown to the crowd, the man sitting there was once Nathaniel Royce, founder of Royce Records. A name that, in its heyday, meant revival. A man who had resurrected orchestral music for the digital age, produced platinum-selling symphonies, launched virtuoso careers from Tokyo to Paris. Until he lost her. Lily. His wife, his muse, his everything. When she died suddenly, an undiagnosed condition, silent and swift, Nathaniel had vanished. He sold his shares, shuttered his penthouse, and walked away from a world that once echoed his name. No more red carpets. No more galas. No more music. Until now. The lullaby he played wasn't famous. In fact, it had never been recorded. She had scribbled it down one rainy night while dancing barefoot in their kitchen. It was unfinished. Just a few lines, a whisper of melody. Meant to grow, but never did. He had kept that memory sealed like a sacred note, until today. And now, in this bustling train station where time never stopped, he let it live again. A girl with earbuds paused. A businessman lowered his phone. A mother with 2 kids slowed her steps. The song wove through the station like incense, curling through the air, finding quiet corners in people's hearts they didn't know were waiting. When he reached the part she never finished, the part with no written notes, he didn't falter. He played what couldn't be written. What could only be felt. The violinist stopped tuning. The crowd swelled, not with noise, but stillness. Reverent. Unbreathing. No one clapped when it ended. Not at first. There was a long, aching pause. Then a small child clapped once, softly. And the room followed. Not thunderous. Just grateful. Nathaniel didn't bow. Didn't speak. He touched the piano bench once, like a blessing, and stood. He turned and walked away. No one stopped him. No one asked his name. But everything had changed. Nathaniel didn't go far. He wandered down the platform tunnels, steps heavy with age, but lighter than they had been in years. The smell of roasted peanuts and old steel filled his lungs. Advertisements for streaming apps and high-end watches blinked from the walls, ironies he didn't bother to notice. He'd once backed 3 of those brands. He didn't care. All he cared about was the silence now filling his chest. Not the oppressive kind he had known after Lily died. No, this was the kind that hummed with something old and new. Something unfinished. He sat on a bench beneath a peeling poster for a cruise line he had once funded. He closed his eyes. His hands, still tingling from the piano, rested quietly in his lap. Her name swelled inside him, Lily. 5 years and 11 days since she passed. Not that he was counting. Today would have been her birthday. Orange tulips had been her favorite, though she sneezed every time she got near them. She always kept them anyway. He had no flowers today. Just the melody. Don't let music die in you, she had said that final night in the hospital, voice a faint whisper of its former warmth. And he had nodded. Promised. Then disappeared. Now, that promise had stirred. A sudden rush of footsteps broke his thought. A girl, a teenager with wild curls and fire in her steps, bolted down the steps, violin case bouncing against her back. She missed the train by seconds. She cursed under her breath and dropped heavily onto the bench across from him. Her frustration wasn't theatrical, it was bone deep. He glanced at her. She snapped, "Don't judge me." "Wouldn't dream of it," he said, offering a slight smile. She squinted. "You're not from around here. Is that so? You've got that quiet thing. Like you don't belong, but you're not scared of it." Nathaniel chuckled softly. "More accurate than you know." The girl pulled her violin case into her lap and hugged it like a shield. "Missed the audition. Conservatory tryouts. I've been practicing for months." "I'm sorry." She shrugged. "Doesn't matter. Kids like me don't get second chances." "You play?" "Nah," she smirked. "Just carry this thing for street cred." He waited. Finally, she sighed. "Yeah, I play. Taught myself. Mom says it makes the house feel bigger." He nodded, his heart aching a little more. "Can I ask you something?" she asked. "Of course. Were you the one playing the piano earlier?" "The old one. Near track 23. He hesitated, then nodded. "Damn," she murmured. "That was you?" He looked down. "I just needed to remember her." She didn't ask who. She didn't have to. Some silences explained themselves. Then, her hand gently unlatched the violin case. "Would you?" She bit her lip. "Could I play something?" I need to." He gestured to the space before them. "Please." She stood, placed the violin beneath her chin, and closed her eyes. She wasn't perfect. Her bow shook. Her E string was sharp. But the sound that emerged was raw, real. It pulsed with anger, defiance, longing. Each note said, "I'm still here," even as her fingers trembled. When she finished, she looked over nervously. Nathaniel clapped gently. "That was honest," he said. She grinned, relieved. "Honest is all I've got." He reached into his coat and pulled out a cream-colored card. No logo. No name. On the back, he scribbled an address. "Come here tomorrow. Noon. Tell them you're expected." "What is it?" "Just a place with good acoustics," he said, rising slowly. "Wait, what's your name?" He paused. "Nathaniel." She nodded slowly. "I'm Amelia." Their eyes met, two strangers, bound not by introductions, but by something stronger. Music. He disappeared again into the crowd. But this time, he left a spark behind. Amelia arrived the next day drenched in rain and nerves. She stood outside a stone building that seemed too elegant to touch, let alone enter. The brass plaque beside the door read simply, "Royce Hall for the Arts." Her coat clung to her shoulders, soaked at the hem. Her violin case, though, remained dry, she'd carried it under her sweater like it was sacred. She checked the time again, 11:59. Before she could press the buzzer, the door clicked open. A man in a charcoal vest greeted her. "Miss Amelia. Right this way." He didn't ask questions. Didn't ask for ID. Just led her down a polished hallway that smelled of lemon oil and old wood. Paintings lined the walls. A cello rehearsal murmured behind a glass door. Another room was filled with sleeping violins in velvet-lined drawers. Then he opened a tall door. And her breath caught. The room inside was a chamber, a round recital space with a high, star-carved dome and a single grand piano at the center, its lid opened like a wing. Everything was dim, glowing. Reverent. And standing beside the piano, Nathaniel. But not in a hoodie today. A dark wool suit hung from his frame. He looked older now. Not weaker, but more whole. "Welcome," he said softly. Amelia stepped inside, her voice shaking. "This is insane." He didn't answer immediately. Just smiled as she looked around. "I'd like to hear you again," he said, without the train tracks this time. She opened her case. Her hands were steadier today. The strings tuned easily, as if they already knew where they were. She began to play. The same piece from the station, but here, it sounded like it had found its home. No rumbling footsteps. No fluorescent lights. Just space. Air. Possibility. When she finished, he asked gently, "What key was that in?" "D minor," she guessed. He nodded. "May I?" "You want to play with me?" "Yes." She laughed, nerves catching in her throat. "You're probably, light years ahead of me. That's not the point." He sat at the bench, adjusted the height, and let his fingers hover. Then, he played. A soft cascade of chords underlined her melody, not competing, not leading, just lifting. Like wind beneath wings. It wasn't a duet. It was a conversation. A dialogue between grief and possibility. Between silence and sound. When they stopped, neither moved. The air between them was thick, not with performance, but with something older. Something deeper. Nathaniel turned to her, voice barely above a whisper. "Do you know what you just did?" She shrugged, breathless. "Played my heart out." "You listened." "To what?" "To me." He paused. "And more importantly, to yourself." He walked to a nearby cabinet, pulled out an old notebook, and handed it to her. Inside, scribbled music, lyrics, and looping cursive. "My wife's lullaby," he said. "The one I played yesterday. She wrote this. I never finished it. Couldn't. Amelia touched the page like it might vanish. It's beautiful. He sat beside her on the stage. Yesterday, when you played, something came back. Something I thought I buried. She looked up at him, wide-eyed. You want me to finish it? I want us to. She blinked, overwhelmed. But I'm just. Don't, he said firmly. Don't say, just. You are a voice the world hasn't heard yet. She turned away, tears filling her eyes. He let her sit in silence. Then said, there's a recital next month. Private. Press. Donors. I was going to cancel it. But I think we should play. Her head snapped toward him. We. He nodded. But what if I mess up? He smiled. That's the point. This piece was never meant to be perfect. It was meant to be true. She looked down at the notebook. Notes danced across the page like ghosts waiting to be heard. Then let's do it. He extended his hand. She shook it. And just like that, the music began again. The days that followed were not rehearsals, they were resurrections. Each afternoon, Amelia returned to Royce Hall. Her thrifted coat still damp from the outside world, her battered violin case bouncing at her side. The city never changed, but something inside her had. Nathaniel was always there before her. Sometimes seated at the piano with his hands folded in silence. Sometimes bent over a spread of music sheets, scribbling softly with a graphite pencil. He didn't ask about her school, her job, her apartment. They didn't need small talk anymore. Their language was music. On the second Tuesday, he handed her a copy of the lullaby's original manuscript. Lily's name was scribbled in the corner like a whisper. Don't think of it as hers, he said. Think of it as, unfinished breath. Still waiting to be exhaled. Amelia stared at the notes for a long time. Her fingers hovered above the strings. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a rooftop, terrified and ready. Nathaniel never pushed. He played the piano gently, coaxing melody from silence, as though the room itself was remembering what it once held. His hands weren't as fast as they'd been. But speed didn't matter. He didn't play to impress. He played to give. They worked tirelessly, shaping the lullaby, not just finishing it but understanding it. What it meant. What it didn't. One evening, after hours of rewriting the second movement, Nathaniel asked softly, "Do you know why this part matters?" She shook her head. "No. But I feel it." He stared down at the keys. This is where she stopped writing. Amelia paused. "Why?" His voice cracked. "We lost the baby. Early. No one knew. Not even our families." She wrote through her pain. And then just stopped. That space, it's her silence. Amelia swallowed hard. "Then what are we doing now?" He turned to her, eyes shimmering. Giving her voice back. Not to erase the pain. But to make room for hope inside it. She nodded, too choked to speak. That night, she added a single high harmonic at the end of the verse. Just a whisper of light where there once was only silence. Nathaniel didn't say anything. He just placed a hand over his heart. The next morning, the flyers went out. One night only. Royce Hall recital. A revival of lost music. No names. No photos. Just a quote, "Some songs are born in silence and only bloom when shared." The city murmured. Forums speculated. Blogs debated. Some claimed Nathaniel Royce was making a return. Others called it fiction. But the buzz grew. Seats began to fill. One afternoon during rehearsal, Amelia noticed him staring, not at her, but at the photograph taped inside the piano lid. A black and white candid of a woman laughing in the sun. A tulip tucked behind her ear. Is that her? Amelia asked. She laughed like wind chimes, he said. She believed in everything. Even when no one else did. She would have loved this. She's the reason for it. Amelia looked down. I'm just a kid with a second-hand violin. No, Nathaniel said firmly. You're the echo she never got to hear. The final week was a whirlwind. Some days, they soared. Other nights, Amelia fell apart, frustrated, overwhelmed, shaking. Once, she dropped her bow and shouted, I can't do this. I'll ruin everything. I'll ruin her song. Nathaniel walked over, picked up the bow, and placed it in her hand. Do you know what the greatest performers have in common? He asked. She shook her head. They fall apart. But they don't leave the stage. She clenched her jaw. He continued, I don't care if you mess up. Just don't stop. Silence isn't failure. Giving up is. That night, she played through the whole piece. Her hands trembled. But her sound did not. The night of the recital arrived wrapped in candlelight and anticipation. Royce Hall shimmered with old-world elegance, red velvet chairs, stone archways, the scent of wax and polish hanging in the air like memory. There were no elaborate programs, no guest list announcements. Just the words etched into each folded paper handed at the door. A revival of something that should never have been lost. People came. Some curious about the rumors. Some desperate for something real. And a few, those who had always believed in the unseen magic of music, came with open hearts, hoping for grace. Backstage, Amelia stood alone. Her black dress fit beautifully, modest and clean. But she still felt like the girl who once missed an audition and cried into her violin case. Every whisper from the crowd felt deafening. Every heartbeat pounded like a timpani inside her chest. Then, breathe. She turned. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, suit pressed, silver tulip cufflinks at his wrists. His tie was navy. His face, though aged, looked serene, like a man who had stopped chasing time and finally stood still. He walked toward her and placed a hand on her shoulder. You know what I used to do when I didn't feel like I belonged on a stage? He asked. She shook her head. I played for one person. Just one soul. Not the crowd. Not the critics. Just the one who needed it. She nodded slowly, trying not to cry. And who are you playing for tonight? She asked. He paused. Then, with the faintest tremor in his voice, he whispered, her. Amelia blinked fast. Then I'll play for her, too. He offered his arm. She took it. Together, they stepped through the wings. The lights dimmed. A single spotlight bathed the piano in gold. Nathaniel walked to the bench with a grace that drew silence from every seat. He sat. Adjusted. Waited. Then turned to the wings. Amelia stepped out. And froze. In the front row, her mother. Tears glistened in the older woman's eyes. Her coat was worn thin, and she clutched her purse like it was the only thing keeping her upright. But her nod, small, simple, was everything. Amelia took her place beside Nathaniel and raised her violin. No introduction. No announcement. Just breath. Then. The lullaby began. It floated into the hall like a prayer. A delicate ache wrapped in melody. Nathaniel's fingers moved with reverence, pressing grief into minor chords. Then Amelia joined. She didn't try to dazzle. She didn't try to prove. She just told the truth, with sound. The crowd leaned forward. Not to see, but to feel. Then came the section, the silence Lily had left behind. Nathaniel paused. Amelia closed her eyes. Together, they filled it. Not with grandeur. Not with brilliance. With tenderness. Her bow barely kissed the strings. His chords rose like stained glass catching morning light. The room wept. Quietly. Honestly. Then came their new verse. The one born from their rehearsals. From healing. A movement of resilience. A song that said, we remember. And we go on. When the final note faded, no one moved. No one breathed. Then, applause. Not roaring. Rising. Not for fame. For truth. Nathaniel stood, bowed once. Then, for the first time in years, he stepped to the microphone. My name is Nathaniel Royce. A murmur rolled through the room. I once believed music died with the woman I loved. But tonight, I realized something. He looked at Amelia. Music never dies. It waits, for someone brave enough to play it again. Then he stepped back. And the silence that followed was full, brimming with something sacred. Backstage, they sat in the dark. No longer teacher and student. Just two souls who had shared something eternal. Amelia whispered, "You were wrong." He raised an eyebrow. That silence she left, it wasn't unfinished. It was a rest. He smiled. Because she was right. The next morning arrived not with applause, but with purpose. Amelia stood outside Royce Hall soaked in rain and wonder. She hadn't gone home after the recital. Just curled up in a velvet seat and let the echoes cradle her to sleep. Now she breathed in the silence, slow and deep, like it might keep the moment alive forever. Nathaniel arrived a few minutes later, dressed simply, scarf knotted around his throat. His expression was tired but lifted. There was a softness in his steps, like someone who had carried a stone in his chest for years and had finally set it down. You remembered, he said, nodding at the single tulip in her hand. Every year, she replied. Every December. The hall should be full of them. He smiled. She'd like that. They walked slowly through the corridor, past the portraits of students now lining the walls, captured mid-rehearsal, mid-laughter, mid-dream. In the center hung a photo of Lily. Not posed. Just, alive. Head thrown back, piano behind her, sunlight wrapping her like a second skin. Beneath it, a plaque read. The song was never about her. It was because of her. Later that afternoon, Amelia taught 3 beginner violinists how not to squeak their bows. Nathaniel guided a group of young pianists in building harmonies by feel, not sheet music. Laughter echoed in the hall again. The sound of living. But not everyone was laughing. 3 days later, they were interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Nathaniel opened it to find a man in a tailored coat, mirrored sunglasses gleaming. A woman stood behind him, already recording on her phone. Mr. Royce, the man said with a smirk. We need a moment. Nathaniel raised a brow. And you are? Carter Blake. Ivory Capital. We fund and acquire performance venues. Royce Hall's been on our radar for years. I'm not selling. Blake chuckled. I'm not here to buy. I'm here to help you not waste this place. The woman stepped forward, phone pointed at Nathaniel. For documentation purposes, Mr. Royce. City records show 0 operational activity for your foundation over the last 5 years. Nathaniel's voice was steady. That changes now. Blake smiled coolly. Then let's be smart. Rebrand the hall. Lease it to us. Make it a luxury performance venue. You get royalties, we get PR, win-win. Nathaniel didn't respond. Blake stepped closer. Why throw it away on a few subway kids with violins? A voice cut in. Because those kids are the reason this place still breathes. It was Amelia. She had entered quietly, violin case slung over her shoulder. Blake looked her over and scoffed. You're the one from the video. Cute story. Viral for now. But 6 months from now, nobody will care. Amelia didn't flinch. We're not building buzz, she said calmly. We're building belonging. Blake turned back to Nathaniel. You have 1 week. After that, the city might revoke your nonprofit status. Without it, this hall folds. Nathaniel looked at him for a long time. Then said simply, "Get off my steps." Blake hesitated. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," Nathaniel said. "But it's mine to make." They left. When the door shut, Amelia turned to him. "Is it true? About the foundation?" He nodded. "I froze the paperwork after Lily passed. I couldn't continue. I thought grief had to be buried, not built through." Amelia stepped closer. "Do we still have time?" He looked at her. "Barely. But yes." They got to work. That night, Royce Hall came alive like never before. Not with concertgoers, but with purpose. Volunteers swept in. Former students. Parents. Musicians. People who had seen the recital and asked one simple question. How can we help? And the answer was everything. They cleaned. Filed. Painted. Restored. Amelia typed grant applications with numb fingers. Nathaniel made phone calls he never thought he'd make. Journalists, donors, even a few senators he once helped get elected. By midnight, the website went live. By morning, it had gone viral. The lullaby that changed a city, one headline read. Another, a silent billionaire, a subway violinist, and the hall that refused to die. But the moment that mattered most came in an envelope. A handwritten note on thin, shaky paper. Dear Mr. Royce. I was a nurse at Memorial when your wife passed. She gave me a tulip after I sang to her during a stormy shift. Said my humming made the pain feel distant. I never forgot her kindness. Last night, my granddaughter showed me your recital online. She asked me, can music remember people? I told her yes. Because yours just did. Nathaniel held the letter close. And wept. Not for loss. But for love that still echoed. The following days flooded with applications. Young musicians came, some trained, most terrified. A girl who'd taught herself on a half-broken violin. A boy who could hum pitch-perfect melodies but had never held an instrument. A young man with hearing aids who read music through vibrations. Even a child with no instrument at all. Just a voice. I hum when I'm sad, he said. It helps me sleep. They were all welcomed. Not because they were perfect. But because they were real. Royce Hall wasn't becoming a school. It was becoming a sanctuary. One late afternoon, Amelia leaned over the balcony railing, watching the stage below. Kids ran back and forth, some rehearsing, some pretending their music stands were swords. In the corner, Nathaniel carefully wiped down the piano keys. He didn't see her watching. That's when she noticed an older man seated alone in the back. He wore a military cap and clutched a leather journal to his chest. She approached him gently. Hi. He looked up, startled, then softened. Sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. I wanted to see it again. Again? She asked. My wife played her first recital here. 63 years ago. She wore red shoes. Thought they'd bring her luck. What did she play? Beethoven. Moonlight Sonata. She cried the whole second movement. Said it felt like the piano was remembering something for her. Amelia's throat tightened. She passed last spring, he said softly. But when I saw your performance online, I thought maybe this place could remember her, too. He handed Amelia the journal. Her notes, he said. Songs she never finished. She wrote them for students she never met. Amelia clutched the journal to her chest. Then now, maybe they will. That night, Nathaniel etched her name, Marjorie Levin, into the hall's wall of honor. Below it, for those who played, not for praise, but for peace. Rain tapped softly on the windowpanes as morning came. Inside, Amelia lit a candle near the upright piano. Just as Lily once had. Not for ceremony. Just for warmth. Nathaniel sat in the recital room, fingers tracing a page from the journal. To the girl who plays in silence. To the boy whose hum will outlast sirens. To the hands that tremble but never stop. He closed the book. Outside the door, Amelia arrived, soaked from the rain, a stack of envelopes in her hands and a fierce smile on her face. "You're not going to believe this." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. She handed him one envelope, trembling slightly. Inside, a check for $2 million. Attached, a handwritten note. "My daughter came home humming a song she heard at your hall. She said it made her feel like the world was finally listening. I never understood music. But I understand my daughter. Keep building. A mother who now believes." Nathaniel's eyes burned. He exhaled slowly. And then, Amelia laid down envelope after envelope. Donations. Messages. Volunteers. "I posted a clip of the recital," she explained. "No names. Just the music." And the world responded. That evening, as twilight fell, Royce Hall buzzed once more. But not with professionals. With believers. A boy with braces and a ukulele. A girl with a cello taller than she was. A humming boy. A girl with hearing loss. A group of kids with paper tambourines and borrowed hope. And Amelia, standing in the center, violin in hand, not like a weapon, but like an offering. "We revived this," she said softly, "because someone believed music wasn't dead. Because someone made a promise and kept it." She looked toward Nathaniel. "And because silence is not the end. It's the place where courage waits." Then she raised her bow and played, not Lily's lullaby exactly, but something built on its bones. New. Alive. One by one, the others joined her. A harmony. A rhythm. A hum. Nathaniel added the foundation, notes that lifted them all like scaffolding made of soul. The music said what words couldn't. "You matter. You are heard. You are still here." When the final note faded, the silence returned, not empty, but full. And that was everything. Nathaniel closed the piano and looked at Amelia. "I think," he said, voice trembling, "we've written her final verse." Amelia smiled. "No," she whispered. "We've just written her beginning." Outside, snow began to fall, the first of the season. Inside Royce Hall, the music waited. Not for perfection. Just for someone willing to play. Even one note. Even one breath. Even one child reaching through silence, hoping someone might reach back. And someone always did. In a world too loud to listen and too fast to feel, one broken piano, one grieving billionaire, and one fearless teenager proved something timeless. When we dare to play what's in our hearts, no matter how broken the keys, someone, somewhere, begins to heal. Some songs aren't meant to impress. They're meant to remember. If this story moved you, subscribe to True Echo for more powerful stories that reveal the soul behind the silence. Leave us a comment, what part touched you the most? And share this with someone who needs to be reminded, their voice still matters.